Listening to Katie is a 3-part story, and throughout this story, the author uses a blending element, which is a technique that authors used to blend the parts of a story together. It's something that recurs in a story, and there are several recurring themes or blending elements in this story, but watch for more references to history class. Another blending element is the boy's desire to combine adventure with making money. Have you ever thought of attempting something really absurd or risky to make money? Can you think of anyone from your history lessons who invented something like that? You know, some people spend years working on an invention and perfecting it, like Thomas Edison. He tried thousands of different light bulb filaments before arriving at the ideal mixture of tungsten. And for others, they discovered something by mistake, like potato chips, plastic, chocolate chip cookies. They were all mistakes that became very profitable. Even Play-Doh was originally used for cleaning soot off the walls from heating with coal. Now, I do appreciate the boy's desire to think outside the box, which means to think differently or unconventionally. The boys don't want to just do the tried and true easy stuff. They want to try and create something spectacular, a new soft drink, something that will make big money. Very ambitious, but the odds of that happening to two 11-year-olds is pretty slim. Katie, on the other hand, has resolved to stick with what she's good at, the tried and true way for young folks to make spending money. So resolved, that's one of our vocabulary words today. So get your notebook out and feel free to jot down a few of these that are unfamiliar to you. Jason's resolve was unchanged in spite of those who tried to talk him out of it. What does resolve mean in this sentence? Yes, it means purpose or decision. Have you ever resolved to do anything? If it's any consolation, I know how you feel. What does consolation mean in this sentence? Comfort or relief. Stanley, reveling in the applause, didn't notice he was alone on stage. What does reveling mean in this sentence? Yeah, celebrating or enjoying. Celebrating is another one of our words today, and I wonder if it'll be Will or Katie who does the celebrating. Do you think Katie will be successful in selling her stationery? Well, read and find out. Why does Katie want to sell her writing paper uptown? It's a wealthier neighborhood, and she thinks the people there will be more likely to buy her paper. So what does Pete mean by saying that they've crossed over into the land of the rich? Yes, they went to the neighborhoods where there were older, wealthier people living. Now, what is the real reason that Pete and Ike don't go up to the door with Katie? Yes, they don't want anyone to think that they, being boys, are selling stationery. Also, they're a little bit intimidated, scared, and don't want to admit it. Now, their first experience with going to the big house met with a stiff white apron, the maid. Could you tell that Katie was discouraged when the door got slammed in her face? Again and again. Yeah. Pete may not have offered to help Katie for the right motive, but what can you tell about his character now? Yeah, he doesn't like to see Katie hurt. He's even willing to earn the money for her ticket now, not just lend her the money. And he encourages her to try one more house. Now, the way the author describes the house is almost foreshadowing that it's going to be a good house. Let's look at page 57 and read. There was one house nearly at the end of the street that had a pretty white fence with a gate swung open and an unruly rose garden taking over the walk. The house was smaller than the others, but twice as grand, its red shutters standing out proudly against the white clapboard. Ooh, I can just picture it. And the author could have just said that an old lady opened the front door. But why do you think she describes her by saying that she is older than Grandma, has shiny white hair like the angel hair Mom puts under the China carolers, and that she has 100 wrinkles going out from the corners of her eyes? Well, the use of the simile and the other descriptions, the imagery, help give you a better image of what Mrs. Norwood looks like. Now, why is Mrs. Norwood willing to purchase writing paper from Katie? after everyone else said no. Yeah, she wants to help someone who is willing to work hard. Now, there was a comment about music boxes. What do music boxes make you think of? I have one here from Australia. Okay, and it plays a little folk tune here called Waltzing Matilda. Listen to how it sounds. Now, why would the author say that Pete thought of music boxes when Mrs. Norwood spoke? What was he getting at? Well, music boxes have a pleasant sound, and the author wants the reader to hear the kindness in Mrs. Norwood's voice and to like her. Now, what causes Katie to regain her cheerful attitude? Yeah, remember, she's been discouraged going from door to door, being slammed in her face. Well, Mrs. Norwood buys several boxes of stationery and a box of recipe cards, and she even offers Katie a cleaning job. Let's read aloud with a confident voice Katie's explanation of why Mrs. Norwood is going to hire her. It's on page 58. Okay. It says, Mrs. Norwood needs someone to help her clean for a few weeks. Her regular cleaning lady is going to be gone for a couple of weeks. She says I'd get good pay. Katie was nearly skipping, and Ike and I had to hurry a little to keep up with her. Katie, I said, you don't even know this woman. How come she asked you? She said she liked a person who believed in working for what he wants, and she needs a cleaning lady, and I need money. So, why not? Well, they'd better ask Mom and Dad first, shouldn't they? And then what happens when they try to ask Mom about it? Yes, Mom is distracted with Pete's latest get-rich schemes. Now, earlier in the story, Pete's mom had called him Peter when she wanted him to hurry. Peter? What do you suppose it means when she calls him Peter Jonathan Bates? Yeah, he's in trouble again. Worms were crawling around his room, and his mom was not happy. How would your mom feel with the worms? She insists that he get rid of the worms that he was planning to sell as bait. Do you think that Pete's sideline worm business would have brought in much money? Well, maybe if there'd been a place to fish nearby, which, as it turns out, there isn't. Very few people in town fish anyway, but they still have their backup plan. When they aren't escorting Katie uptown to her new cleaning job, they're going to go back to trapping animals and selling them for their skins. Will Pete and Ike likely have some success with one of their money-earning plans? Let's read and find out. Now, why does Pete compare himself to Lewis and Clark? Well, perhaps Mr. Jackson talked about it recently in history class. And Lewis and Clark did tromp through a lot of woods on that trip. And just in case you're not familiar with Lewis and Clark were men chosen by President Thomas Jefferson in the early 1800s to explore a way to the Pacific. They mapped the areas they traveled and brought back information about those lands. Their travels aided our country in acquiring what is now the Western United States. Now, Pete has quite an imagination, pretending he and Ike are the great explorers and fur trappers. What lessons should Pete and Ike learn from all of their get-rich schemes? Hard work is rewarded, but trying to take the easy way out has its consequences. Now, there's a biblical principle at work here. Luke 16:10 says, "He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much." God does not honor a lazy servant. He wants us to be busy and dependable workers. Let's read aloud in a dejected tone the paragraph in which Pete is realizing the foolishness of his plan. Let's look at page 60. "I didn't think it was amazing. I thought it was flatly discouraging. What animal worth his pelt would live in such a scrawny woods as these?" We stood there a moment, like Ike reveling in his geographical discovery, and I wondering if I could come up with another plan to replace this one that was rapidly going the way of our archaeological excavation. So how do Pete and Ike's attitudes and actions suddenly change when they see the rabbit? Yes, they go from being dejected and discouraged to triumphant and excited. They'd been standing around moping, and now they're running and chasing the rabbit. Now, why does Pete feel triumphant when he sees the rabbit? He thinks, now they'll finally get a fur and make some money. Cha-ching! But what does the author compare the rabbit to? Yeah, a zigzag sewing machine. Do you think that comparing the rabbit's running to a sewing machine is a good comparison in this situation? Well, as part of your assignment, you're going to read aloud Pete's description of Ike's wild rabbit chase on page 60 and then the top of 61. Try to make it sound exciting, like the zigzagging of a sewing machine. Now, how do you think Pete's mom will react when she sees his torn pants? Well, based on his mom's response to his other adventures, she'll probably not be calm. You'd think she'd be used to it by now. Now, why is a torn pant leg insignificant compared to Ike's falling into the hole? Yes, Ike could have been seriously hurt. Let's look at page 62. The picture on page 62 shows you that Ike fell in a pretty serious situation there. What does the story say he fell in? Although the author does not specifically say that he fell into the hole, how does she let you know that he did? Yes, she describes how his baseball cap dropped out of the sky and disappeared into the earth, kind of like a cartoon. And how does the author help us see the humor of the situation when Pete first sees Ike in the hole? Yes, Ike is compared to a porcupine, and then he very calmly puts his hat back on and makes a sarcastic remark about how well the trap was covered. I like Ike. His character is pretty much stays the same throughout, following Pete's wild schemes. Ike is a true friend. Now, why do Pete and Ike's enterprises or schemes come to an end? The parents find out about their escapades and they have to apologize for digging up someone else's property. The good news is that they are going to do yard work for Mrs. Norwood. Now, how has Katie remained consistent throughout the story? Yes, she continues to be diligent. She continues to be kind and optimistic, even at 10 years old. And how has Pete changed? He finally decides to work to earn money. And he finally listens to Katie, like Ike was telling him to do all along. In fact, she earned enough money to take them all to the amusement park. Did you see that twist coming? Well, I like this story. Did you get any ideas for how to raise some money? Maybe. Just don't be a harebrained scheme. Okay, now let's take a look at the work text page. Okay. It's a crossword puzzle here. And you're going to do some new vocabulary words here. Now, if you diligently use your vocabulary notebook, these exercises should go quickly. And it also doubles as flashcards as you study for your vocabulary quizzes. So you can see that I wrote some words down here. And this will help you, these little terms, or you can use the bottom of your reader to get the definitions for some of them, or even the glossary. That's fine to do. It's still a way of studying. Then down here at the bottom, you're going to answer these questions in complete sentences. Now, the story doesn't go on to tell us about the kids' trip to the Kingdom by the Sea, does it? I wonder why not. But you can imagine that it was fun, can't you? I enjoy going, every few years or so anyway. Now, where do you think Kingdom by the Sea is? If you look at the next work text page, page 25, you'll see that this is a map here. Okay? This map includes Alton Heights, the town where Katie and Pete and Ike live, and then Kingdom by the Sea. Can you find that? There it is right there. And in case you were wondering, Kingdom of the Sea is not a real place, so don't go looking for vacation packages or anything, okay? And look at the map key. And see, tollway means you have to pay at a toll booth to use the road. And as you look at the key, find each element somewhere on the map. And also notice the grid. Here's A and B, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. What section is Kingdom by the Sea? Use your grid. B4. Yeah. Okay, I think you know enough about maps to answer each of those questions easily. Now, I thought this story was funny, and even though I read it several times, it still made me smile, even on the fourth reading. Maybe because it reminded me of some childhood escapades. But let's think about it. What is it that makes a story funny? Well, it's hard to point to just one thing that makes a story tickle your funny bone. Usually it's factors like the situation, the characters, and the wording all put together. But there are specific types of humor that writers use to make a passage funny. And one such type of humor is exaggeration. That's overstatement or magnification. It's where the writer takes a normal situation and uses overstatement to stretch it to ridiculous proportions. So instead of an author writing, Colin tripped and fell into the garden, she'll use exaggeration and say, just as the young Squire Colin turned to leave, he tripped over one of his long-toed shoes, catapulting himself into the vegetable bed and flattening every one of Farmer McDougal's prize-winning red cabbages to nothing. Well, that's funnier. The writer uses intense verbs like flatten and catapult, which makes me think of hurling boulders at a castle to describe a young boy falling into a cabbage patch. Did you notice how the writer insists that every one of the cabbages were flattened? Exaggeration often uses words like every and all and everybody to make the situation seem bigger than it is. But exaggeration isn't the only type of humor. Writers can send their readers into fits of laughter by giving a character an impractical idea, which is an impossible scheme, a ridiculous misjudgment, or lack of plain common sense. For instance, here's an example. Robert didn't have a dog like Brent did, so he spent the rest of the afternoon trying to teach an old farmyard cat to fetch. Push didn't seem too eager to go running after sticks, so Robert tried using little sardines. But Puss would never bring them back after she fetched them. So just imagine Robert tossing slimy sardines at his cat, expecting him to fetch and bring them back. Not the brightest idea, but it's funny to read about, and it made me chuckle. Now, the last type of humor I want to show you is irony. Now, irony comes in many forms. Using words in a mocking way so they suggest a meaning that is the opposite of their usual meaning. So try to find the irony in this example. Kelly thought for a long time trying to name her new pet turtle. He didn't run fast like a dog or cat or hop like a bunny. He just sat in his cage and crawled slowly. And finally, Kelly thought of the perfect name, Speedy. Now, what is the irony? Well, turtles are anything but speedy. Exactly. The author is saying the opposite of what he really means. Now, sometimes this comes across as sarcasm, but it isn't always sarcasm. And you will often find at least one of the types of humor in almost any piece of humorous literature that you read. And you might also find it in your conversations.
Welcome to your favorite fast-acting show, Humor Me. The round 1 challenge is, act it out. What if these humorous exaggerations actually happened?
You ready? When Chelsea saw the snake, her eyes popped out of her head. Her hair stood on end. Oh, and her jaw dropped to the floor. Her jaw dropped to the floor. And...
Is that all?
She melted into a puddle of tears.
Wait, what do you want me to do?
For round 2, come up with an impractical idea and sell it.
Do you have trouble paying attention? Does your mind start to wander when you're supposed to be studying or working?
I mean, yeah, sometimes I like to pretend that I'm a pirate on a high seas adventure searching for buried treasure.
Well then, you need my Zap to It hat. It actually measures your brain waves. And when your mind starts to wander...
Wow, that's shocking.
Exactly. And the jolt and the noise actually gets your brain back on track. Helps you to focus. You want to try it?
No, it looks ridiculous.
Okay, the brilliant part is you just wear another hat and nobody even knows that you're wearing it. See? It's customizable for every outfit, every fashion, every occasion. Let's say you're going to the opera.
Finally, it's quick scene with a touch of irony.
So, I heard you got a new dog.
Yeah, it's great. I feel so much safer now knowing that Killer is watching for intruders.
You named your new dog Killer.
Oh yeah, fits her perfectly. She's so fierce and intimidating. You want to meet her? I can go get her.
No thanks. I don't do so well with big dogs. They make me nervous.
Well, listen, even though she's really intimidating on the outside, she's a sweet little baby on the inside. I can go get her. Really, you'll love her. I'll just go get her.
You could just show me a picture.
And here she is, my fierce, intimidating little watchdog.
Killer beast. That's exactly how I would picture her.
The next time you come across something funny as you're reading, try to decide if it fits into any of these categories of humor: exaggeration, impractical ideas, or irony. Now, work text page 26 provides you with an opportunity to identify these types of humor. Each of these paragraphs is from Listening to Katie, and here's the explanation there, but label each one with A, exaggeration, B, impractical ideas, or C, irony. So, the big idea of the story, listening to Katie. Listen to your sister? No, not necessarily, but in this case, she was more practical and diligent. How about the same lesson from The Tortoise and the Hare? Slow and steady wins the race. Another way to put that would be hard work is rewarded. No matter what you are doing, being faithful, being diligent, and responsible will be rewarded eventually. Maybe not necessarily monetarily, but there are things that are more valuable than money. Proverbs 22:1 says, "A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver or gold." For instance, here's just a little thing. Your assignment is to answer in complete sentences. Why answer in complete sentences? Well, you tell me. Yes, as you get older, you're going to be writing papers, answering essay questions, and so on. And this simple exercise of answering in complete sentences helps prepare you for these harder tasks that are coming. So don't be fooled by get-done-quick schemes. Do the work. Do your best every day, all day, and work on developing your good name.